welcome to Chris Parking Shooting Sports. Sportsman Gun Centre have just sent me a new scope from Element Optics, and this is a Helix 8x56. So 8 times magnification, 56mm objective lens. That objective lens is going to let a lot of light coming in for the tube, great for low light hunting, and of course it's now March, soon going to be April the 1st, so I'm really looking forward to getting out for the roebucks and I'm going to get ready for it. So I've got Mauser M18 here in 243, which is my favoured roe stalking rifle. I've got a couple of pairs of Element Optics scope rings, these are the XT rings, which I'm a big fan of using, and I'm going to set this up today and get ready, zeroed, to use the rifle as the weeks commence. So let's have a look and see what's in the box. We have an Element Optics sticker, an Element Optics instruction manual. These are usually very detailed, and this reticle has got aim over marks to give it a more appropriate use for stalking, hunting distances. We take this out here. I've already had it out of that bag, and this is the scope itself. So it comes with elasticated or rubberized eye cup protectors like that, but it's also got fold up objective and ocular lens protectors as well, and I think I'll probably use those as a preference because that's going to give me the greatest ability to protect the lenses without risking losing anything. These are both pop-up, so I can flip them up like that. I'm just going to leave the rear one off for now because I've got fast focus eyepiece on the back here, and we've got regular finger adjustable dials to set windage and elevation underneath the turret caps. This is an illuminated scope, and I've got intermediate off positions with, having a look at this, 5 intensity settings on it, and that is going to get used. Let's get it set up. Magnification is 8 times its 30mm tubes. The objective lens size is 56mm and the exit pupil 7mm. Eye relief is 101.6mm. Field of view is 13.75 feet at 100 yards, which is 4.61 metres at 100 metres. The click value is quarter MOA, and there are 15 minutes of angle per revolution. Overall travel elevation and windage is 80 minutes of angle, and parallax is fixed at 100 yards. Overall length is 327mm and it weighs 743 grams. The Helix comes with instructions, so you can check out the holdover marks on the Raptr reticle and see how they suit your rifle. There are examples given for 308 Winchester and also for 223 Remington in common sporting cartridges. The instruction manual does actually tell you the Helix needs to be zeroed to your rifle, which shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to most shooters. You can see the detailed instructions about how to set up the illumination system and fine-tuning your zero and bore sighting it pretty much the way I did it. It's well worth noting that the dials can be slipped, so you can set it back to mark 0 when you've zeroed the rifle itself at either 100 yards or 100 metres, whichever is your preference really. The manual includes detailed instructions to help you understand the difference between minutes of angle, milliradians, and how they apply to your shooting, especially at longer distances. Element supply these handy stickers to put inside your scope cap so you can read off exactly where you've set up and practice with your rifle. Now this rifle's got a Picatinny rail on it, and a Picatinny rail usually adds a little bit of height, so it's all very well saying what height scope rings you're using, but I'm actually going to go for the lowest set I've got here because I suspect there'll probably be enough clearance. So I've got XT mounts 30mm medium Picatinny, and I've got XT mounts 30mm low Picatinny as well. I'm going to start out with the low ones because I think they might do the job. Now these have got T15 Torx fittings on them, and you get a T15 Torx wrench with the pack. I'm doing a bit of an unusual video today because I'm going to set this up and zero it out at the range on the farm. Just because it's a little bit quicker and easier, I'm going to swap over to my tools. I've got a Torx T15 Torx bit in here, and I can very quickly just spin those ring tops off there, because of course we do need to check the height and how well these are going to fit, because I might need to swap to the medium ones, we shall see. You'll note I can just spin that, there's a little bit of mass to it, so it's got a bit of momentum, but these rings are really nicely made, and the bolts themselves have got great threads on them, great threads cut into the actual aluminium, so that they spin very, very easily. So pop that on there. Rings just need moving a little bit closer together, and I'm going to move the rear ring forwards. Done that up a little bit tighter than the torque wrench. It's actually a little bit difficult seeing because I've got the sun right in my face. But I got the impression you guys might not want another video set in the workshop and you wanted to see it all done real time out in the field. Pop that one there just for starters. Have a look at that now. Right, so that's got the rings spaced as far apart as they'll go without damaging the actual tapers on the scope tube itself. And we've got about 7 or 8 millimeters of movement there, and if we need more than that, we can actually move the scope rings themselves. Now, as I said, it's got a Picatinny rail on it, so we didn't need the high rings at all because I've still got probably 9 millimeters between that scope and the actual barrel. So I'm very happy that that is going to give me an optimum fit and use on the rifle. Now I've got this torque wrench set up to 2 Newton meters, which is perfect for the tops of scope rings. I'm just going to move these out of the way so they don't blow away in the wind. Now I want to keep the gap between the top and the bottom of the scope ring about parallel. And I'm not tightening anything down yet, I'm just spinning it into position, just so I'm just fingertip tension on them, just so that I can move things around and nothing's going to bind. So you can see now, I've just nipped those up just finger tight and I can just slide that, just move it without any damage occurring. I'm just going to take that off so it doesn't block your vision at all. Right, so the rifle's all set up. I'm just going to take the bolt out now because I'm going to bore sight it. You can get all sorts of tools for bore sighting rifles, but the simple thing is, if you actually look through the bore, well, you've got 20, 22, 24 inches of extension there to actually align. And if you've got a nice big clear target with just one small aiming point in the center, you can line that up really easily. The first thing I always like to do when zeroing a new rifle, I come in a bit closer, make sure I've got a nice big clean target with a spot in the middle to bore sight on, and then I can make sure I can see any bullet impacts on the paper. There's no wastage of ammunition that way. So I've got the bipod, got my target, it's about 50 meters, doesn't really matter critically at this stage. Once I'm in that 5 centimeter circle at 40, 50 meters, it's going to be very close and I can then move back to the 100 meter zero distance. It's my preference. I've got a soft bag here, the bolt's out, so I can now sight through the bore in this bright sunny day and get that so that the red spot on my yellow target backer is right in the middle. It's very bright today, and it's, as usual, these things are sent to test us a little bit. This is the disadvantages of tall cheek pieces because you can't often see through the bore to do this. Once you have bore sighted it, it's done forever, unless of course you decide to change something. So my rifle is now perfectly aligned with the red spot in the middle of the yellow paper. And if I take both these turret caps off and look through my scope, I can dial my reticle so that it's also aiming exactly at the red spot. And then I can take a shot. Now there are all sorts of tools available for setting up the position of your scope to make sure there's no reticle can inbuilt into the rifle. If you have those tools, that's great. Generally they'll use some kind of a spirit level across the top of the action or across the top of the turret, and you can run that parallel to it. For a sporting rifle like this, and to be fair for quite a lot of my rifles, I tend to do it by eye because the human eye is unnervingly good at aligning things. And the trick to doing it is if you're looking through the rifle scope and you've got the rifle set up nice and stationary, you can align the bottom crosshair with the bore, or for example if you've got a striker on the back of the bolt with a cocked action indicator, align it with that. But the other thing you can do is if you withdraw back from the gun you get a small exit pupil at the bottom of the scope, and that is even easier to align with the bottom of the reticle and make sure you've got it exactly as you want it. As I say, I prefer to align the 6 o'clock stage of the reticle with the bore. Some people might prefer to align it slightly skew-if because it's how they hold the rifle, and really that comes down a lot to personal choice. If you're not talking super long distance, dialing things like that, you won't really notice the criticality of it, because on a stalking rifle, a stalking scope, we're not talking major adjustability for long range shooting. It's more about getting a good zero comfortable to you, and if you prefer a different way to do it, that's one thing you'll learn to do yourself. This is my preferred way, and I use it on every rifle scope, on every rifle I use, but if you do have tools, please feel free to use them. And once you've got that scope set up in the reticle alignment you want with the correct rotation, you then just need to work diagonally on the rings to tension them and nip the scope in position. And as I say, my torque wrench is set up here to 2 Newton meters, because that is the recommended setting I use for this size of screw. So T15 Torx, and I can just go click, 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 and I know they're all correctly rotated and tensioned. Now, I'm 100% confident that that scope will stay in position because it's using a quality rifle, quality Picatinny rail, quality mounts, it's a quality scope, so I don't have any doubts. And the other thing is, because I could feel when these rings were very gently tensioned, there was no movement at all, there was no bending force applied to the scope. It's literally tightened down, come to a stop, click, 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 and that is indicative of the fact that the scope itself isn't being bent into position, nothing's misaligned. So do be wary of that, especially with lesser quality optics and mounting systems. So I'll check the bore sighting now. I've got a large piece of yellow paper with a red spot in the middle, it's about 50 meters away, and I've now got the perfect tool to sight down because I've got a 22-inch barrel or whatever it is here, and I've got that linear arrangement to get the alignment on that to make sure I'm pointing at that red spot in the middle of the target. I've got a sandbag underneath the back end of the rifle, gives me a nice stable position, and I can align that so that that little red spot is looking exactly through the center of the bore, and I then look through the scope, see if the reticle's pointing in the same place. It's well worth doing this a few times because it's unnervingly accurate. And I'm confident that the red spot is now in the centre of the bore. Dial the reticle so it covers the red spot. Check it again. That looks about right. So let's take a shot and see how we get on with it. Now I can see that bullet hole just slightly high and left. So now I can adjust according to the click values of the turrets. These are minute of angle turrets and I'm about 50 yards, so if 4 clicks move it an inch at 100 yards approximately, I would need 8 clicks to move it that inch at 50 yards because I've halved the distance, and the clicks are an angular value, not as necessarily a movement on target. So if I now come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 clicks will be 4 inches approximately, or 4 meters of angle at 100 yards. It's also a bit left, so I need to move it a little bit right. And let's just go 8 clicks, because I'm enjoying shooting, so I'm not doing all the maths in my head just yet. Looks like I'm just on the edge of the patch there. So let's empty the rifle and clear it. I'm going to walk forward and have a look, because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So down at the target now, just have a look at these. So we bore sighted here. The first shot went there. I brought it down a little bit right. Second shot was here, and then my third shot was there. So we want to maybe take a few clicks up, a few clicks right, but I'm now going to move back to 100 meters and get a precise zero for my usual hunting distance, and where I prefer to zero for using a rifle out in the field. Clicks on the scope are pretty accurate. The tactile, you can feel them moving, and the tracking has been very good on target to make sure everything stays exactly where you want it to. If you want to take the caps off completely, Element also supply these go strings here which fit over the threads to make sure everything stays perfectly clean and usable, and you can then use them as a more external turret type, but low profile, good for hunting. The 56mm front end means you've got excellent light entry into the tube, so you get a really bright picture even in poor light. The flip-up eye caps are my preference, but you do also get the rubberized covers if you want to use the rubberized elasticated ones over the top instead. The tube's really nicely finished, there's no scratching, it doesn't pick up the dust off your skin. The threads have been very neatly cut with clean anodizing, so actually everything spins into place easily, and that's a good sign for the internal manufacturing standards of this Element scope as well. Fast focus at the back end has meant I've got a really clear reticle picture, and of course there are aim over marks in the reticle, so you can aim over it a little bit if you want, but of course a standard 8x56 scope is designed more for hunting and point and shoot rather than making long range shots with ballistic calculations. Element Optics also supply a sunshade with the scope. It's 3 inches long, 76mm, and that will of course stop some errant light transmission coming in through the scope. Right, I'm back to 100 meters now, still got the rifle, got the binoculars, I've still got 2 rounds left of the first 5 rounds I put in the magazine, so hopefully so far let's see if we can do a 5-shot zero on this rifle. I'm back at 100 meters, so I've just added a few clicks on just to move the bullet impact just right a little bit, up a little bit, just so that now we should be very, very close. So now I'm going to walk forward, have a look at the bullet impacts, because I can't see them easily through the binoculars or the scope. It's only an 8x scope, so it's not like having a huge magnification range to zoom in on. The point is this has got the 56mm objective, so that when you are hunting, you're looking at larger quarry speeds, especially things like deer stalking. You might be looking at a roe deer 100, 150 meters in very poor light. So that large objective lens is allowing a lot of light to come in, come through the lens packages inside and transmit through to your eye. And again, it's a simple reticle. It's got a couple of holdover marks if you want to take slightly different shots, but that's something you need to practice and make sure you've got the actual holdovers correct for your cartridge caliber, etc. Right, let's walk forwards. So now forwards, we can see a factor that some people get a little bit confused by. So we initially zeroed at about 50 meters and we've gone back to 100 and we've got 2 bullets have struck high. Now the alignment left to right is virtually correct, but they're both high. And why are they high? Well, actually, when your bullet leaves your barrel, it's actually slightly pointing uphill effectively to meet up to the line of sight of your scope, which is often about 50-55 millimeters above the bore line. So now we've moved back a little bit, that bullet's had a chance to rise even further, because as I said, they're all diagonal, they're all angular measurements, or angular changes. So if we now look at these 2 here, we need to dial back down to when we're here. That's probably about 8 centimeters high, about 3.5 inches, and it's about ½ an inch left as well. So say, depending on what turrets and what scope you're using, you might be working in minutes of angles, which is virtually the same as inches, or milliradians, which is centimetres, and metric, and generally speaking works exactly. A minute of angle is actually 1.069 inches at 100 yards, not exactly 1 inch, so you do kind of make up for that. But if you can shoot a rifle that accurately, you should be well into knowing exactly how to make your adjustments down. So I'm going to drop probably 3 minutes of angle here and go right half a minute of angle. So that's 2 clicks right, 12 clicks down. So we need to go down 3 minutes of angle, about 3 inches. So that's 12 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we want to go right about 2 clicks, about half of an inch. So that's 1, 2 clicks right. Okay, let's reload the mag. Off we go again. So this is 8 rounds now we've used, or we've shot 5, and I'm just going to load 3 more here. Let's have a little look. And I've adjusted a little bit too far. Let's go forward and have a look. Check the rifle's clear, all's good. So we adjusted down, put 3 shots there, and then we moved up a few clicks and put 3 shots into the centre. So I might just put another click up, maybe just 1 or 2 clicks up, just to get that perfect, and I'll probably put a fresh spot on and shoot a new target now. But I'm very happy with the way the rifle's shooting. It's 100 metres, certainly accurate enough for any kind of hunting scenario I'm likely to morally use on a road here. Right, let's move and put a new spot on. I don't see any point too much scrimping on ammunition when you're zeroing. Okay, you don't want to waste any, which is why it's good to have a large background around your target to make sure you can see where the bullets are going. But take your time, walk forward if necessary, don't make guesses, and you'll generally find you waste less ammunition actually getting it on target, and you can spend more time on your ammunition learning to shoot, practicing shooting, being happy with the rifle, being confident with your zero. And if you want to make those small 1-click increments, just to check it, walk back, let the rifle cool, take a 3-round group, and always go on a 3-round group rather than single shots. It's important to remember you've got a comfortable, stable shooting position and you are happy with the way you're shooting. Make sure your scope mounts are tight, make sure your moderator's tight, make sure your rifle's tight in stock, and make sure you're operating the gun with correct ammunition, because there's nothing more infuriating than when you make a zero and then realise you go home and something wasn't actually correct at the time you were zeroing the rifle, because you then left guessing, was it right, was it wrong? Be confident, because a good zero means you can rely on the rifle, leave it alone, and just enjoy shooting it. Now we moved on to another target, and a good group again, but I've just gone a little bit high and left, so I'm obviously clearly not quite right with my adjustment yet. But do bear in mind I'm using an 8 power scope, and at 8 power that reticle is almost blotting out that 50mm red circle. So do make sure you're using a target that's large enough so you can bisect it clearly and make sure you're not overwhelming things. Because if I move on to a deer size target, or the deer size quarry I'm going to be hunting, it's not going to be the same problem, but that little 50mm 2-inch dot is quite small to make sure I'm not covering it with the reticle. So I am kind of second guessing my aim point a little bit, and I'm going to move on to the deer target now. So my last group went a tiny little bit left, tiny little bit high. I'm just going to make a slight correction for that. But I also think there's a wind blowing, and I'm in quite a sheltered position here, but as I walk backwards and forwards from the target, you do notice a lot more there's a strong wind. Now the grass is very short at the moment, so I can't see movement in the foliage, but do bear in mind, if there is strong wind, it can move your bullets around a little bit at even such a short distance. So just think about that. It won't be a lot, but it will be something. And now, just to make sure I'm getting a more realistic aiming proposal, I'm going to go onto the deer target, because it's an 8x scope, it's more of a hunting scope than a target scope, and my little 50mm red circles are quite small behind the reticle. So I'll go for 3 chest shots first. I'm going to aim at the splash mark of the previous shot now. That seems more than acceptable. And because I'm enjoying shooting, I'm going to put 3 shots in the head now. I'm more than happy with the 0 on this scope, and as we've seen, when you move on to the larger aiming solution with a fixed power scope, low magnification, great light transmission, great field of view, you do get a bit more precision back because you are bisecting a larger target, so to speak. Aiming at very small dots with a hunting scope isn't always quite the precision you think it should be, and suddenly when you do move on to a larger target, you suddenly find that precision comes back to you. Now you'll probably set up the eye relief, either forwards and backwards of position of the scope, to suit your preferred shooting position, but in a hunting scenario, who knows what position you might need to shoot from. It could be sitting, kneeling, standing, using some kind of improvised barricade or obstacle to rest from, shooting from quad sticks, off the back of a vehicle, even maybe if you're out foxing. Now you'll have set the scope up to compensate for the eye relief on the scope. Eye relief is usually between 90 and 100mm on most daylight sporting optics. You'll have set that up probably from your favourite shooting position. I was sort of standing shooting off the back of the truck to 0 today, but in a hunting scenario that's not how I'll be hunting. So I might be shooting prone, I might be shooting from a high seat resting on the front, I might be shooting from quad sticks or even a tripod. So I now want to practice from all those positions and make sure the eye box of this scope, i.e. where my head is in relative position to the optic, means I've still got a full vignette-free clear picture. I'm also going to take the opportunity to test some of the holdover points on this reticle to make sure it matches my ammunition, because I've got a target out now at 200 meters.